Mstay na nas kumana nohtsipi ntohtawik minagsimantu na nas kumao mino kiganyo up to gisuok minangawi nanaski. I want to thank the Creator, the Four Directions, and Mother Earth for all of you being here and for being invited into the Anishinaabe lands. I want to thank the indigenous people whose lands that we are on today. Today, my presentation, I'm going to have to move quickly, so I want to apologize ahead of time if I sound like an auctioneer. My traditional name is Sylviam. My people are what in English are called Cree people, but in my language it's Nihiawak. And I come from the Treaty 6 lands, and today I want to talk about what is happening there on my people's lands. But the topic, I think, generally here today is liberty and homelands, so I focused on that. I want to talk about Idle No More very quickly. I'm one of the four founders of this global movement. But I want to talk about my story. But the other ladies, they have their unique story as well. What happened and what started Idle No More for me is that, of course, it was Bill C-45. So I'm going to go through the teach-in, which started on November 10th, 2012, and it's coming up 5 years in November. And I'm still so busy, I keep thinking, it's got to slow down. I need to breathe, but it isn't. And what started from Saskatoon went to Montreal, Edmonton, Toronto, Whistler, James Bay to Ottawa, Ottawa-Piscot with Chief Spence, Cape Breton, Windsor, Vancouver and Victoria, Ottawa, Lethbridge, and the young people stood up. That's what made it so amazing and powerful and creative internationally, across the Americas, overseas, by Twitter. It was Bill C-45, which is still colonial law today, even though Idle No More brought it global attention. And here's me. I grew up on a sugar beet policy. I started working on the sugar beet fields of Alberta when I was 5 years old, and this was enforced by the Department of Indian Affairs and also by the Indian agent. So I know injustice very well. I didn't get a full year of elementary because of this sugar beet policy. I also didn't have a full year of high school, but that final year of high school, I insisted on staying. And this is hidden from your colonial history, because who wants to talk about the slave labor of children, right? And I worked there until I was 19. This is the boreal forest of my people. Beautiful, beautiful land. I grew up there, ran around like the happy little savage I am. I loved it, loved it. In the winter, I would go with my dad. We would go hunt the animals. In the summertime, the Indian agent would force us to go work in the sugar beet fields, but he couldn't control my adult life, so I'm back on the land, back out there. But this is what my people's lands look like today, and I want to tell you this and share it with you because it's important that you know this. This is what it looks like now. I am a lawyer. I've been trained in your colonial law, but I cannot even go to your legal systems to find protection for the boreal forest that we need, my people need, all of humanity needs to sustain us into the future. The clear cutting. I have no issue with lumber. I want to make that clear to you. What I have an issue is the way that the colonial extractive corporations, the lumber companies are going into my people's lands and taking the trees. It's called clear cutting. The United Nations has condemned it, and yet The lumber companies that have been issued these licenses are still going in there, and the way that they're taking the trees changes the ecosystem, changes the landscape, and in the most devastating way, takes the trees. This is what the boreal forest looks like now. Take a look at it. That's the boreal forest. And I'm not talking about 10 miles. I'm not talking about 20 miles. I'm talking about hundreds and hundreds of miles. People are outraged about the rainforest in the Amazon, and I see the fundraising that goes on about it. But what a lot of people don't know is Canada exceeds the Amazon in terms of deforestation of my people's lands all over Turtle Island. This is what it looks like from another angle. And my father, we didn't want to take him to the land. These are my family's hunting lands that have been in my family for generations. Generations. I know these lands so well. And my dad, one day my dad went, and my brother happened to be there, and he took a picture of him. And this is the land in which my grandfather's hunting cabin once stood. Where are my people supposed to hunt? Yet, when you look at Treaty 6, our hunting lands are supposed to be protected. Supposed to be protected. But your colonial government continues to violate the treaty. Continues without consequence to take the resources that have been unceded and unsurrendered. My people are buried out there. There's about 1,000 to 1,500 graves out there where I stood to protect and defend when Idle No More began. And this is the story you don't get to hear, but I'm sharing it to you today. These are children that ran away from the Indian agents and the priests that came for the children. And the children, knowing they were going to die as they ran into the forest, we buried them where they died. I'm going to court. There'll be a trial in January and December. January or February, we haven't decided yet. I just got an email from a practicing lawyer, and I've been evicted from the hunting lands. We did save some of the forest. My nephew and I, last year, we stood our ground. We said, no more. You're not taking any more of the trees. And this is my nephew, who's 12 years old. And he has an amazing story to tell someday when he finds his voice. And there's a little creek that flows through it. And while we were over there, we did a symbolic blockade of that hunting road. And we did a symbolic blockade. And one day, we left to go get supplies. And when we came back, somebody shot up our signage. Even at 12 years old, my nephew was able to identify and connect to the idea. He says to me, Auntie, do you know that's a death threat? 12 years old, and he was able to figure that out. And here he is, in the red. That's my other nephew in the yellow. And we stood there. We lived out there for 3.5 months. We lived out there because they came for the trees after they promised us they wouldn't. Treaties are unfinished business. There is so much about the treaties yet that are unenforced and not implemented at all. And the Indian Act leadership never took treaty. That's an imposed system of leadership. Where does all this power come from? All of you need to explore the doctrine of discovery, a total fictional system of authority and jurisdiction over our lands. What are the solutions? Abolish the doctrine of discovery. But also, some of the people asked us, what are the solutions? So if you go to edit, it's going on right now. We have we have an off-the-grid, sustainable housing that totally lives with the land that my people work with and have designed. So I encourage all of you, go there, go there. And this is a gentleman that was homeless, and we built him a home. See that wood stove? It can generate electricity. So now I don't believe when people say we can't live off the grid. We can. I've seen it. I've been part of it. And that's part of, creative exploring of solutions. But I ran out of time, and I'll leave you with that thought, but thank you for coming here and listening to my presentation.
So thank you, Sylvia. I would first like to say thank you for finding your voice and for, for Idle No More, for taking your voice across the nation and beyond. Also, thank you for filling the gap, for telling us in real terms that Canada's First Nation do not enjoy liberty and self-determination. Saying it again and again until finally something will change. So my question would be, what should true liberty, freedom, and justice really look like?
There's something in the treaty term and promise, especially under Treaty 6, that says that every family of 5, more or less, are supposed to get 1 square mile. That hasn't been implemented. I don't have my 1 square mile. I have children, and yet that hasn't been implemented. Can you imagine what I could do with 1 square mile? I can. The economic opportunities that have been withheld from Indigenous people, that's the first step. That would be the first step. Get to know the treaties. They're, like I said, they're unfulfilled.
And then?
And then we could work on alternative solutions, solar panels, the off-the-grid housing, all these wonderful things that I don't know how come your colonial government refuses to explore and enforce and implement. There's extremely wonderful solutions out there. Yeah.
Well, thank you for giving us this first step, and I think we should all collectively also read. This is a shared responsibility, and thank you for sharing.
Well, thank you for having me here.